There we go.
And
Okay.
now we're recording. And this is the beginning of our very first podcast. Hello,
It
Kristen.
is. Hi, Greg.
How are you?
I'm good. We were going to talk about today why the heck people would listen to this podcast or
Yeah,
you
right?
or me.
Yeah.
So,
So let's talk.
so we're going to talk about this podcast is really going to talk about leadership
Yes.
and all different aspects of
Yeah.
leadership.
That word is going to hold a lot over the time that we talk,
Yeah.
which is great. I mean, not necessarily.
So why should anyone listen to you about leadership? I mean,
uh,
I know, but
I would say that I'm laughing because I think I'm a good leader. I don't mind saying that. And honestly, that's taken me a long time to be able to say. But I think part of why I feel comfortable saying that is I have just made so many mistakes in my time as a leader, and I know I have more to come. But I've taken and taught leadership classes for years. I've written books and articles and blog posts about leadership for years, but I don't know that I've learned as much from anywhere as I have from just being kind of in the trenches and trying things and having them not work, or trying things and having them work, and engaging and all that. And so
Mhm.
I think the short answer to your question is I've seen and done a lot as a leader, and I can absolutely help people avoid the same mistakes that I made. I may have
Yeah.
a longer or better answer, but that's the first one I have. What about you, Kristen? Why should someone listen to you as a leader? And by the way,
I
I totally know why, but
Well, I mean, like, I think I have the same answer as you do. So just for a little history for people who don't know
yes,
us,
I think that's
our we met each other because you were my boss for a
right.
while.
Gosh,
And I was the boss of a team at the same company.
right.
And so you were our VP and I was our sales manager and I had a smallish team. I think we had probably 8 people on that team, I
That's
think.
right.
And so
Yep.
it was a long time ago. This was
It was a
20
long
plus years ago. I was thinking about it the other day. I'm like, "Wow, I've been doing this a long time."
yes.
And, um, and I think that was my first time being a boss,
Mhm.
and it was my worst time being a
Mm.
boss. Like, I feel really bad for if anybody is listening to this that was part of that team, I apologize for
Mhm.
how I was a boss at that point in time because I have learned a lot since then, and I I wasn't a good one. I think I always wanted to be a boss, though. Like,
Yeah.
I've been a boss since my brother was born when I was 3. I was like, "Great, I have a minion,
I've got it,
and I've
yeah.
been able to, like, run this." So,
I wanna comment on that though, because yeah, it was a long time. We're
yeah,
talking now late '90s.
yeah,
And so, and I remember that time, of course, very well. And yeah,
yeah,
it's essentially what you described. What's interesting to me is that I also say about myself that my experience of being a leader in that organization, in that team, was when I was the worst at being a manager. Like, for all the reasons I was the worst. Um, and however, I got the chance to sort of watch you decide to be a boss. Like, you were so clear. You were like, "I should be a sales manager. I should have a team of salespeople because I believe in what we should be doing, and I should be the one who's doing it." And it was one of my first experiences, and so this is the first thing I'll say, to anybody who is in a leadership role or looking to be in a leadership role. When you have the opportunity to have someone on your team that steps forward that clearly and crisply and says, "I am ready for this next challenge," like, do it. It was such an extraordinary thing to just let you do that, and let you makes it sound like I knew what was gonna happen. I did not.
no, I mean, we were both, sort of doing the best we
We
could, I think.
were. We were
Yeah,
very good, yeah. But watching you lean into it, watching you make mistakes and learn from them, watching you get frustrated with members of your team, and you and I talked about that, and sort of, it was a very formative time for both of us, but it was
mhm,
so exciting for me, even at the time, even as inexperienced as I was, to watch your enthusiasm for leadership,
You
right?
could call it hubris.
Well, for both of us in theory, but yeah, but you did get knocked
Yeah,
down. See, the thing, and maybe that is hubris. Maybe this is
yeah.
the we always talk about hubris
I
as
think
an
you have to have a little bit of that to
no,
be a
yeah,
manager because it's not
no,
always gonna go perfectly.
it's not. And there's going to be days when, and this is, we're going to be fun to talk about the paths that we've both taken since then
Yeah.
and what connected us again. But, there's days when like nobody agrees with you.
Mhm.
And yet you're gonna have to lean into it and move forward with your vision anyway. And, and that was I think that, that's the maybe that's the hubris part where you're like, "No, no, this is the way we need to do this." And
Yeah.
every like, "It's a terrible idea, Kristen." And you're like, "I don't think it's a terrible idea."
No.
Yeah, and so but anyway, yes, so that was those were, that's the Kristen and Greg origin story. Uh,
Yeah. So we also both though are entrepreneurs now.
mhm.
And I have a
Yeah,
small team and you have no team
right,
today, but I could see that maybe changing in the future. I don't know.
yeah.
But how did you become an entrepreneur?
Holy mackerel. And I'm gonna say, like, okay, yeah, you and I are both entrepreneurs right now in the way that, like, Meryl Streep is in a movie and a local community theater person is on a stage, which is to say, you've been running your own company for 9 years and growing it and building it against all the things that have happened. And I'm really new to this, and it's many painful many days. And there's part of it that I don't love.
It's still
Okay,
painful many days at 9 years in. So
we're gonna be like, "Oh,
to be super encouraging, Greg.
they become super joyous at year 3." Like, damn it. Um The thing I like about this entrepreneurial space that I'm in now
Mhm.
is the sheer number of interesting things that I'm inclined to chase. And in fact, with a colleague and a friend and former colleague, we started working on a project last year that we literally called our shiny object project because we both were like, we have too much to do to give this a lot of attention and time, but God,
Mhm.
it seems like it might be really cool. And
Yeah.
so the first thing I think I'm really enjoying about an entrepreneurial space is that, I'm the one that gets to decide the direction that I go, and as you said right now, I don't have a team, so, like, what I do is entirely up to and the creativity in that really feeds me,
Mhm.
in a way that I did not expect. The fact, and as I make connections on, well, this is a point, and this is a point, and this is a point, and when I
Mhm.
bring it together, that's an interesting thing that I haven't thought of before that I could put effort into and potentially somebody might pay me to do it. So I think that's the most fun thing so far. What about you?
Yeah.
You've been doing it for a long time.
Well, so I've been doing it, like you said, for 9 years. And I started it because I've kind of always had an entrepreneurial streak, I think. And it comes out in different ways. It comes out because
Mhm.
my husband and I like fixing up old houses. And
Mhm.
that's, I think, entrepreneurial in a way. Um, it comes out I started an interior design company for a year when I was younger in my
I
20s. And it
remember.
was like a really, in hindsight, kind of a dumb idea because we didn't do our homework on the target market. And, it was our first time starting businesses and we
Yeah.
didn't know anything. And yeah, it was not great. But I've always kind of had that desire to sort of build something. I like building things.
Mm,
And so, I had an opportunity where after a couple of corporate jobs at a VP level, I had a nice exit at one of them with the company and I had some money in savings. And when I got to the end of the one that I had been doing, it ended kind of weirdly. We had to make a tough decision as a leadership team to shut down our San Francisco office, and I wasn't down with moving to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
I can
Nothing
imagine
against
why.
Pittsburgh, it's a
No,
lovely
no.
city. I just
Lovely.
didn't wanna
Yeah.
live there.
Yeah.
So I started looking for my next gig, and as I was going around and talking to people about VP jobs, I realized there was a huge need for somebody like me who had experience building 2 customer success teams and understood how to do that, and understood how to do it at a very practical, deep level. And so I thought, "Well, I think there's a business here," and I was encouraged by a couple of colleagues that I have that are also consultants to get into the space. And I started it though with the idea that I didn't want it to just be me. I wanted it to be a bigger organization. And so, kind of named it and structured it in a way where it could be that. And now, now it's 9 years later, I have a small team of like me plus 5 people. So it's pretty cool. It has had its ups and downs. It has gone, I mean, we've been through adding to the consulting a training program. We've been through a global pandemic. We've been through like an economic downturn. So there's a lot to that. I've had to completely change the the business structure like 2 times because of us needing to change how we did business. And so it's been a lot, but it's been really rewarding.
That's
So
amazing.
yeah.
Well, I've talked about it enough that I know that there's those ups and downs, and it kind of maybe back to that hubris point about how staying dedicated to the vision, means some days, like, it's gonna seem like there's not a single good reason to keep plugging away at this, but you do, and you did.
Yeah, I did. And I'm really proud of how long we've been in business. I mean, I think a lot of businesses like this fail in the first year or people get frustrated with them and decide it's not worth it. And I love it a lot. I think, is this the last thing I ever do? Probably not. Is it something that's been incredibly rewarding and I'm super glad I did? Absolutely. So
I like that. One of the things that I this will be fun to dig into it on maybe in a later podcast, but when I think of as you're talking about it especially, this characteristic that I think that you have that really makes this work is tenacity. And I've seen you in that space where just like no one's gonna tell you that you can't do something. You're gonna if it's something that you like almost just
that actually makes me do the
I
opposite and
said,
like
"Yeah,
succeed. If somebody
exactly.
is like, you can't do that, I'm like,
Watch
watch
me."
me.
Yeah.
Ho
Hold my
hold
beer.
my beer.
The other thing I think is really relevant is you think about, like, why should anyone listen to you and I, as leaders is we've also got a long, experience in corporate settings,
Mhm,
and I certainly I have more experience in that space than I do in an entrepreneurial space, and the corporate bit is really interesting. I was actually doing some writing about this morning. In fact, I'm working on a new book, and I'm about leadership, but I just finished a whole chapter about followership, which is not a word I think I've ever used before, but it's this idea that, every leader in a corporation is also a follower. They report even if they're the
mhm,
CEO or to a board of directors. I was not the CEO, of anything, but, there's this sort of this dual space you hold as a leader in corporations that I think is, uh, critical and not easy, right?
mhm,
And my job is to bring a vision forward for the organization that I support, that I lead, and my job also is to execute against the goals that somebody else gave me. Like, do the following things and don't bother me, right? And, whatever the answer to that is. And so that middle road, and I hesitate to say middle manager because I think that really discounts what it is, but there's something about learning to lead in that space, right? How to be
mhm,
many, many years ago, mentor of mine called it freedom within fences, right?
mhm,
It's this like, how are you innovative in a closed environment? How do you
mhm.
make something new in a space where, people you've never met control your budget and your headcount and all of that. And I liked that environment. And so when I think about leadership, um, I managed to thrive and really grow in a space like in those corporate spaces and the various corporations that I worked for, um, managed to find all kinds of ways to be successful there and to solve interesting problems, which
Yeah.
more of what I love to do.
Well, I think when I think about you and leadership, I think one of the things that stands out to me is that you have a real interest in people and people dynamics and how those interplay with the operations of businesses.
Mhm.
And I think that's a I see people usually gravitating toward one or the other, but not always both. And I
Yeah.
think you have that nice blend of being able to see people, understand dynamics, and figure out how to um, apply that human side to the operations of a business, and you're really good at that.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I think the other thing that's interesting, just thinking about you and I in a podcast and why people would listen to you and I doing this. And I loved starting out with kind of where we met and how we met and what we were doing then.
Mhm.
Um, so we've sort of come back together in the past year. I don't even remember exactly why we met the first time, but we made a decision to continue meeting on a regular basis. I
Well, I think I had reached out because I saw that you were starting your business, and I
Oh yeah,
um,
yeah, yeah,
and I wanted to know more about what you were gonna be doing, and I
yeah,
had gotten your book, and
yeah.
yeah, and so and I think we
Right,
started
yeah.
chatting, and we were like, "Well, we both have consulting businesses. Let's,
Let's do
keep talking."
that.
And also I think you were doing writing, and I at the time was doing
Yes,
writing, and we wanted to be writing accountability buddies. And
yes.
then what was mostly initially for maybe 2 calls writing accountability buddies has turned into, like, we're like business accountability buddies and,
Yes,
like, chatting about stuff. And so then it
yes.
just sort of made sense to kind of turn it into a podcast, I
It
think.
it did. That's the perfect way to describe it because we kinda went from this like, "Hey, let's reconnect," to
Yeah.
realizing that we both have things that we believe are valuable to say to other people who are
Mhm.
trying the same kinds of things. We discovered that the kind of support we were getting and giving each other just on these regular calls as entrepreneurs, like, that's been huge for me in getting my business
Oh, me
going.
too.
And so this idea that A, we're to the points in our career both where we have things to say that are valuable and worth hearing, and we have come to recognize the value in having a person or people, that you're connected to, that you're bouncing these ideas off of, that you're
Yeah.
using. So that was I think that's where the podcast came to be, um, in, in where we are today, which is, how do we bring this forward then and continue getting people.
Yeah, and I think, you know, we have a lot of fun talking.
We
I hope
do,
the
yes.
podcast is fun for people because I think we at least we amuse ourselves when we
No,
talk.
look, the
Hopefully, we
fact that
also can amuse
yes,
other people.
here's the thing I'll say, listener, assuming you're out there anywhere, is that if nobody listens, we're still gonna have a good time.
Yeah,
We're gonna
exactly.
laugh, and we're gonna tell jokes, and we're gonna find humor in ourselves because we've been doing
Yeah,
that now for a long time.
yeah,
But we're also hoping people will listen because that's fun. That's even
yeah.
fun.
So some of the things we're planning to talk about, if we
Yes.
wanna go
Yeah,
through
well,
that, is,
let's
like,
do that, yeah.
we're gonna talk about the foundations of effective leadership. So, what does it take to be an effective leader? We're gonna talk about how to build and lead high performing teams and what those look like,
Yep.
and how to navigate leadership challenges like handling conflict and stuff. Emotional intelligence was one of our topics. I'm
That's
just
gonna
kind
be
of look,
really fun. I'm looking forward to that.
yeah. Leading through crisis.
Mhm.
I have an unfortunately recent example of that in
Right, yeah.
then we're gonna talk about diversity and inclusion and developing future leaders and how to do that, how to be that multiplier person who builds more leaders that come after you. What else is ethics. We're gonna talk about,
Oh, that's right, yes.
yeah, the future of leadership, like what's coming down the road,
Yep,
and then we'll see where we go from there. Those are
yeah.
some of our topics that we have outlined, and I think we'll get those rolling. You'll probably, if you're listening to this, you're probably listening to it, and there will be other episodes
Probably others
already
available.
posted.
By the time
But
you get to this, there's probably other ones
yeah,
already.
yeah. So I hope you all enjoy it.
Well, and here's the I hope you enjoyed it as well, and here's the thing I'll say, this is why I've been excited about this, and I'm excited about the list that Kristen just went through, is that every single one of those things, like, neither of us has to go and find a book about that topic, so we have something to talk about.
No, we have strong opinions.
We have
That's the other
strong
thing you'll get.
opinion.
They may not be right opinions, but they're
That's the
strong.
strong opinion, but it's because we've done it. Like, we've been, like, at a desk in front of a computer or in front of a
Yeah.
human, and the thing that was just the topic that Kristen mentioned was thrown in our face, and we were given the, like, sink or swim opportunity to be in the
Mhm.
middle of it, and I will say for myself, I'm happy to say I survived all of them.
Mhm.
Not all of them went as smoothly as I would have liked, but what you'll get to hear if you listen is you'll get to hear what our real experience was like with those topics.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so,
I mean,
I
that's probably good for this first one. What do you
think
think?
for the first one, I think we are solid. So
Okay.
listen to this, we're
Cool.
excited, as Chris probably another session ready already for you, so, let us know what you think. Let us know what you'd like us
Yeah. If there's, other topics you want us to cover, we'll cover them. 'Em. We're just gonna talk about leadership stuff, so,
to are.
all right.
So
Bye,
this is a
everybody.
great kickoff. Bye, everyone.